Hey, Danny just joined.
See here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm not sure. Switching between microphones and stuff. Let's give it like a minute. And I think we pretty much got another working session, right, Jeff? We were thinking of just playing around with that tool and then spitting out some of the fields to start with. Like in a markdown format or something.
Uh, yeah, I did some work on the trying to start identifying the
Uh-huh.
things we wanted to have in the profile. I didn't do anything on terms of the documentation.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. I mean, however, I think we can just I know we're all crazy busy, so we can just do kind of like a working session or whatever if you want. That's kind of what I think that's what we had planned last time anyway. Let me, give me 1 sec. I think my speaker's a little going in the wrong way here. Okay. And then it looks like we got another join here. Is that Joel?
Yes, I'm Joel. I work for a data center company called Brown Digital Infrastructure, and we're looking at joining OCP. So I just thought I would start to attend a couple of meetings that sounded interesting, and I think I'll probably just be a fly on the wall for this meeting if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, totally fine. Just to give you some perspective, right? I mean, I don't know if you saw some of the stuff, but falling under this sustainability template, and we're just working towards sort of an initial spec so far as basic out-of-band hardware telemetry accessible to data center operators, kind of as the first step towards this journey to kind of get more and more power telemetry to folks as a way to, measure and then improve that.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so you kind of caught us within a working session and getting towards an initial spec, but yeah, like you said, well, certainly welcome to hang out, and we're pretty informal, and just come anytime you want.
I appreciate it.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I think Jeff, you want to just I don't know if you want to like share, or we could just discuss profiles, or however you want to work through it, like 'cause I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, let me see. I think I had this open. Okay, there we go. So I'm still cutting and pasting into this. So I've got some extra goodies that I
Okay.
think about. Um, but going back to uh, the list of items that we wanted, fundamentally it was it's power and energy, and and that's the first thing, and then obviously we want power and energy at the system level or the device level, however you want to say. I want to get your total power coming out of the wall, total energy consumption for your thingy, and then we can think about how do we want to make recommendations for, okay, if you're a server, well, then we'd like to get some of those major subsystem power things so that you can start to divvy up the efficiency and the other metrics that we want to be able to subdivide from that. How much memory power versus CPU power versus fan power, that stuff. So that was category one. That was kind of that's the beef of our requirements. And then we also had the location data to be able to find where this thing is in the world for the purposes of assigning carbon footprint, and the related stuff from that. And then lastly, enough product identification information so that you can identify the product, and again for that carbon footprint calculations.
Right, yeah. Back to the idea, yeah.
So okay, so that's that was really for Joel's work. Yeah. So let me start with the easy stuff first then. So where did I put it? This is the stuff I've left in here. So did I put it at the top? Oh, here it is. Okay, so what did you know what? I've duplicated this. I do have it. It's up here. Where the heck did it go? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I'm just looking over. So, okay. So one of the things we ran into with the OCP baseline profile was that we got a little too simplistic when we made the requirements because it works just fine for a single chassis server, but as we have a lot of products coming in now that have multiple chassis, and that kind of hits in two areas. First is the modular systems architecture. So they'll have effectively, big chassis and then sub chassis. And this, I'm speaking to this from the way that the Redfish model works for these physical containment pieces. So those are all called chassis. So you have a nested doll model of chassis within chassis. The other area that makes that a little complicated is that in the area of DPUs, those actually show up as systems, so that's not really the issue. It really is the nested chassis problem. So in some of the existing profiles, we have just some mandatory requirements for things like make, model, and serial number and so forth. Well, if you're the main chassis of a product, well, that's totally fine, right? That's exactly what we expect. But if you're a modular system and you start having sub chassis, well, then those things don't necessarily have all those details. So, but the profile just says, well, every chassis instance has to have that stuff.
So what would be a chassis within the, I mean, quote unquote chassis, right? What do you think might, I know beyond the, or can we just name like how should we say this? Can we name like the server compute chassis as sort of like the lowest level chassis we're gonna
Yeah,
require?
So there's two ways to approach this. So I'm taking what I think is the simplest way, and then we can talk about I'll talk about the other way we can do it if we want to be a little more explicit. So what I've done here is in the profile lingo, the one of the potential requirement levels where there's mandatory. You can see this, mandatory, recommended. There's one called if implemented, which is kind of the like, oh, if you have a fan, then I need to have the fan speed and the part number and so forth. But if you don't have that, then none of that stuff's required. So it's ways of getting things elevated as they as you drill down into the model. The one that we added after these original profiles were done, one of the support level, one of the requirement levels we added is called supported. And what supported means is that for the service, you have to have this property must show up, or it's effectively, it has to be supported by the service, and you meet the requirement if one instance of this resource type contains the property. So let me put that into English. If I have a system, or if I have a device that has four chassis, because it's a modular thing and it's got modules inside of modules and so forth. As long as one of those chassis reported the manufacturer and model, then these requirements would be met. So, it may just be the outer skin is what has a model number and a manufacturer name, and and the same thing for some of the location data. Because the location data for like what country is this thing in, every power supply and every every other little thing inside certainly does not need to duplicate that information. So Danny, as you were saying, so this effectively makes it easy from a profile stance, because I just mark these as supported, and then the test tool will go through, and as long as if it finds
Got it.
just one chassis, well, then you better have it. If you got two chassis, as long as one of them has these things, then we're fine. So the other way I can do this is that I can make a what's called a use case, which basically subdivides this resource type into multiple cases. And so in that case, I could do the general purpose case where it just has these as supported. It's like, hey, you got to have a chassis, you know, if for in one of your chassis, you need to have location,
Right.
make model and serial number. We could then make a separate use case with which could add a requirement like you said, you know, like, can we do this for the outer skins? We don't have there's not a thing that would tell you that this is the outer skin, but we do have chassis type. So I would do something like, say, if chassis type is rack mount, or, you know, and they could be, you know, we can make a list of the ones that are in there, that some of them could make sense as an outer skin, some of them were clearly not. So we could start with some of those to say, hey, if this is a rack mount chassis or a standalone tower, you know, if that's the chassis type, well, that should be your outer skin. Therefore, you got to have this stuff. So it was kind of a belt and suspenders thing, because the test tools would look to see, well, if it, you know, if this chassis meets this use case, then it goes through and starts looking at the requirements. And if it doesn't meet the use case, then it skips it. So
Right.
what we would have was kind of a generic, hey, any chassis, you ought to have one that shows this stuff. And then we can say, oh, but specifically, if you have a rack mount chassis or a standalone chassis, then we could do the same thing, but mark those all as mandatory.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think, let me think here. Yeah, and I mean, I kind of like the idea of like, you must have at least one chassis. I guess there's no way for us to say like, how should I say this? Like, is there any way for us to mandate sort of like you have to call it compute chassis or something, and then here are the things within a quote compute chassis, like, or do we just kind of have to leave it as like yeah, I'm trying to think, because I mean, I don't know if anybody would want to have a chassis within what we're calling the compute chassis. Can you think of any? Like,
Well, the bladed architectures is a really good example. So you have like
okay.
an enclosure, and then
Uh-huh.
each is a chassis in and of itself.
Uh-huh.
That probably won't come into play here, because in those cases, they probably all have this stuff,
Uh-huh.
right? Because you might have the you know, the outer skin, the you know, the blade chassis, or the enclosure, as it, trying to use different terminology. But that big enclosure would certainly have you know, its location data, and it would have make, model, and serial number, and we absolutely would want that to have the you know, power and energy readings. But then if you go into that and then find that, hey, inside there are 12 you know, 12 server blades, and guess what? Each of those will have make, model, and serial number. They'll also have they'll probably, we would really want those to also have you know, power requirement, you know, power and energy readings, right? So
Yeah. Okay.
so that's why I don't bring that one up. That's the most obvious of the nested cases.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So, but do we, I guess it doesn't, I'm trying to think if there's any reason where we need to like call out, like, you must at least have this type of chassis, or call it this, but I guess not. I mean, as long as everybody knows.
Right, and then
Yeah.
so and there's no normative definitions for those things, because the
Yeah.
he has, you know, calls things, you know, all kinds of bizarre stuff. So, and I'm sorry, since I've got this notepad window shared here, so I'm pulling up the schema file that shows this. So here's the value for chassis type, right? So we've got some obvious ones. There's rack, there's blade, and enclosure. So that's how you would nest those things. I would call, you know, that might be it calls it a generic term, but I would probably do this like the outer skin would be the rack mount chassis, and then the internals,
Okay.
you know, those would be blades, right? So, and you know, here's the standalone. But then you can see we get into the things where you can get to the inner guts, right? You know, card and cartridge, you know, expansion, sidecar, sled, shelf, drawer. So
Yeah.
there's no normative language on this, because we just can't.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe we just do it as sort of like suggestions, like we suggest you name server chassis this or something similar. And then I guess the only thing is, I mean, and maybe, I don't
Well,
know.
that's why I was thinking to do, maybe
Yeah.
maybe we do the use case, because I can catch it from
Yeah.
requirements just by
Right.
saying, hey, one of your chassis, I don't care how many chassis you have, but you know, one of them's got to report power and energy, period.
Right.
And then we can do a second thing where we say, hey, you know what? If you're going to declare yourself a standalone or a rack mount or an enclosure or a blade, we can list all those out and say, hey, you know,
Yeah.
these are the terms that if you're using those, and somebody could come in later and say, like, well, I'm a sidecar. Do I need to have that? Well, that's up to you. But you know, we're going to kind of put our foot down to say, if you're calling yourself one of these things, I expect to see power and energy readings, right? And it's
and that all makes sense. And I'm not too worried for that way. The only way, and this is maybe a little forward thinking, like, I guess, I'm trying to just think too, like, maybe this, I know this is way later, but when we get to where somebody's like, hey, I'm an app running on, and because of the identifiers, they know, you know, what processor and you know, maybe even what core on the processor they're running on.
Yep.
And I think eventually we're going to need to be like make sure, okay, if you're on this processor, you have this shared memory, like, and then this shared chassis resource of like a fan, right?
Yep.
And so I think that's how this chassis thing is going to be like. I guess then you have a component can only be, I guess a component can be in as many chassis as long as it's nested, and that's the thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay. I think, yeah. Okay, so I guess all we, like you said, all the checker needs to make sure is that there's at least one chassis, right? Or something, right? Okay.
Yeah. Let me see. I've got so many windows open here now. I lose where I was at.
Maybe like it has at least one chassis, and that chassis has the following components.
Right.
Got it.
CP profile. Where I was. Nope. I'm gonna close some of these because I don't remember which ones. OCP. There's sustainability profile config. Where the heck did it go? One of these things when you reboot and then like this thing remembers everything I had open. So it's like, oh, I've got so many. It just keeps opening the same ones. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Got 4,000 Chrome things open right now. Am I right?
Exactly.
Oh my God, I don't know how it's not crashed. Yeah.
So we said this is like rack mount. What was the other one? Standalone. Okay, so one of the things I think I wanted to add here was we're gonna mark this as so it's like you have to have, yeah, we know you have to have a chassis resource. Okay, so we've got, all right, so we've got
There you go. Yep.
okay. Okay, so right, okay, so the actual power measurements themselves, those actually show up in a resource underneath chassis and also in a lot of other places. And that one's called environment metrics. So what I did was I went down kind of the same path, and we could kind of follow the same thing here, to say that, look, I need, you got to have at least an environment metric somewhere in your system. And I placed a URI requirement here of, it needs to be an environment metrics under some chassis.
Yeah.
So we can have these metrics under processor, under memory, under the thermal subsystem, which is how you get the whole all the collected fan power. And again, that stuff all shows up, but I think it's from our key is like, hey, as long as you have it somewhere, we're good. But more specifically, it has to be somewhere in the chassis set. So if you reported, if I just reported processor power, you wouldn't meet our requirements because we need you to report the chassis level power.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to catch here. And so then basically the same thing. And so one of my questions is going to be, and I have to go check some of the tool language to see if I've marked the entire thing as supported. then I may be able to make some of these, mandatory. But again, I think supported is going to be what we're asking for. And I'm trying to think that do we, and I didn't do it yet, but I can put some conditionals here. But again, I think as long as we say supported, I think we're good. This may be a recommend, and so I would like us to go out with a stake in the ground and then settle to say that, look, I want both. I really want you to
I think so. Yeah, let's do that. Let's put that out for Rev 1 or start at least getting feedback as part of the whole thing. But yeah,
exactly. Because I think I can come back to say you have to have one or the other, and I just have to figure out how to do that with all the supported pieces and stuff. So that because it's usually like you have to have one or the other. Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
I have to think about how do I do you have to have one or the other, but you have to have it somewhere. So it's like I gotta
right, and maybe we just I don't know. We can maybe just make a comment, some offline thing or something, but.
Right. And so the way that usually works is like, look, you need to have this one. And basically it's like, this is marked as supported. Like, well, hey, if energy is not there, well, then you have to have power. And if power is not there, then you have to have it. I can do that too, but we'll kind of look at that. And so the only other thing in that area was, is under the energy object. There is the reading is obviously where you get the reading. That's why there's no additional, that's just a mandatory thing. So if you support for every instance of power or energy, it's mandatory that you have the reading. That's like duh, because otherwise this is useless. But then I added another one here under energy. There is an optional property called lifetime reading, which is that lifetime accumulation, because energy can be reset. That energy counter can be reset by the user or by the service or whatever. So it can reset to 0. And so there is an optional field for the lifetime that does not get reset. So I think we would mark that as recommended, because that makes it really easy for us to collect data. And then if you miss stuff for a week, you know that well, I don't care if the user reset it every day just because they wanted to see how what the 24-hour periods look like. But meanwhile, I can look at the lifetime reading and still know how much energy I've used this month. So that's the basic piece. And then so then back down to the chassis. The location data. So I've put recommendations and this is the new physical address that was just put into the Redfish spec late last year or mid last year. It's fairly recent, so it's going to be too soon for us to mark those as as mandatory, because there won't be anything implemented yet. And then I kind of looked at them and I backed down, because I put recommended on all of the properties, and that had all of the human readable text. But as I keep sort of switching my hats to go on to from a client perspective, yes, it's a really useful idea. From a user perspective, I really want to have the street address and the zip code and the country and state. I want all of that. But from a sustainability standpoint, from a sustainability client, what we really need is the machine readable fields, and those are going to be the ISO codes. So that's what we really care about. If you didn't put in street address and state and city and state and country as text fields, that won't impact our the sustainability clients. So I don't put those in the profile, because they're going to be covered in lots of other places. But from our perspective, what we really want is the machine, the machine parsable stuff, and those are going to be the country codes. And postal code is also there. So
okay.
And so in the ISO lingo, this would be like, this is like USA. The subdivision code would be Texas, and then obviously postal code is would be our local zip code.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Let's see. So that's the chassis. And there it is. I'm sorry, I skipped over this. And then yeah, there was so environment metrics. This is the link to the environment metrics. So again, you need to you need to make sure that's linked in somewhere. And then I just like manufacturing model. There are other things like part number and SKU. But if this is really for product identification.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Cool. Do we lose you or are you on mute?
No, sorry, I've
Oh.
got somebody else in my ear.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. Just making sure. All right.
So let's see.
Chassis looks solid. And
Yes.
then do we have the list of required chassis components or something? Not sure how we
What do you mean?
sort of like CPU, memory, whether we have, but I guess they all, man, I guess fan is maybe not a mandatory because you could have a liquid cooled entire chassis. But we should probably put it as like a recommended if present kind of a thing. And then I don't know if we're just gonna, and then like BMC storage, that kind of thing. Like kind of the things we had before.
Well, and again, I think this is going to be where where do we want to what do we think the requirements are going to be? Because in the Redfish model, all those power readings, if it's the if it's a memory device, if it's a drive, if it's a processor, those all show up as an environment metrics. So
okay,
kind of got it covered here. If you want, so the one area I don't have is the and fan power would show up in the same way. It just shows up in yet another location. So we can add those things again, kind of like the belt and suspender. So I can add like use cases to say, hey, environment metrics under the under processor, but I think a lot of them are going to look the same. And the difference may be that we would mark those as recommended and maybe be able to give some more some text to explain, hey, this is important because.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so I think you've got the good list of the what's there and what's recommended and all that. Do we have like a separate table where we start? How's the best way to organize the whole? Remember we had the conversation around accuracy and sample rates? We just do like a table for that in the document, or what do you? I don't know what you think.
We can do that. We can do. Let's see. I've got here. So in the sensor, but I don't know if we want to require that. But I mean, we can talk about. I don't think I have. Yeah, see, that's all. This is all stuff I'm going to delete. As I said, I've been cutting and pasting here.
Sure.
So in terms of sampling frequency stuff, I can put that on the sensor resource, but the problem is that I don't think we're going to require folks to actually populate all the sensor pieces. So I suspect we're going to want to just call that out as a spec thing, not as a.
Oh yeah, like in a table, like if you have a sensor of this type, it must be this kind of sample rate, this kind of accuracy, this kind of, or yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Okay, separate table seems better.
So we can put some notes on these.
Okay.
I think I've got that here.
Hi, folks. Sorry for interrupting because I joined extremely late. Are we continuing reviewing the profiles from last time, right?
Yeah, kind of the profile and then what Jeff is building. This is something that he can use to spit out some of the documentation around required components and parts of the profile. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So the entire.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask, the entire format that you're sharing and editing right now, that is part of the profile.
Yeah, this is the profile document. And from that, it'll spit out the documentation that we
Yeah.
were showing last week.
Okay.
And so the other area that is different, and this is where I'm not sure if we may want to do. I have to think about this as from a clarity perspective. This covers, just basically this like page or two that covers all of the products. What it does not cover, sorry, it covers all of like the IT product. Let's put it that way. What it does not cover is the power distribution systems, because those don't have these environment metrics under particular resources, because they're not the ones consuming power. They're power delivery. So what they have is are circuits and outlets. So we absolutely want to put the same recommendations and requirements on power distribution products, because if you have a metered, if you're doing a metered CP PDU, well, that may be a really good way for us to get all of this data, because I can buy one of those and service an entire rack full of miscellaneous gear that that now I can get this data and some amount of granularity. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering if we want to put that. I can certainly do it as a sort of as the if implemented, but it starts to become a problem because the profiles are really starting to target different things. And so we may want to make a separate profile, or we may want to punt those pieces to a separate profile, which may or may not, be something we stand alone, or maybe we just go tell the rack and power folks, that we can give them that information and just say, put this into your support profile to make sure that the sustainability, metrics are covered.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Cool. So I think anything else for us to go through? I think those are the big swaths.
Yeah, those are the big ones. And I think if I pull out all of the power distribution stuff and just put that in a separate piece for the moment, I think that'll make good clarity, and we can, and then we can see if that makes sense to folks.
Okay, cool. All right, you want to just, like, whenever you finish up the final pieces, like, throw something, and we can just share it over email too and start getting feedback that way, right? In between the meetings. Okay. We'll just do a working session on that next meeting, and then start trying to figure out. And like you said, then the way you'll export it could be like PDF stuff for us to read, I think, but then also Markdown, and then that way we can add in some of the other paragraphs over the OCP Markdown format.
Right.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, and I think as I showed is this the one that, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
Very
so
cool.
this is what the tool spit out in Markdown form. So you see that it's
headings and builds and everything, right?
Some of the URI stuff, because of it gets a little goofy, but it's not bad.
No,
if we put that in there, and I guess we need to go back to see the we got a GitHub repo, didn't we? So
we do.
Put it up there. Then
we do. I still can't push to it from my Intel laptop.
Oh yeah, that was the
we
issue.
have it.
Yeah.
I can put it.
But yeah, we can put them up there, and then this becomes very readable because Markdown knows how to view that.
Yeah, for sure, do it. I mean, worst case, I'll just have to get a personal laptop or something if I need to jump across. That's what John's been doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Nope, sounds good, Jeff.
I'm looking at this at Notepad, but you can also pull this up in like there are Markdown, editors that will let you see it as WYSIWYG. So.
Right. Very cool. Okay. I think that's probably it for today, unless anybody has anything else they can think of, or.
side question, were you folks saying that pushing into our GitHub repo is being a problem? Like, is that something we want to reach out to Kevin for?
Yeah, I've actually I did a few rounds with Kevin, and I talked to some other folks at Intel, and yeah, I don't know. Are you good on your side, Shruti? Do you have any of the same proxy issues or anything, or can you push to the GitHub, the OCP
I know
GitHub?
I know I have access to view it, but I have not tried to push something. Let me try and see.
See and let me know, because
Yeah,
I'd be really
sure.
curious if, different corporation or something, because I think Kevin's like, it's on your side. But then I was talking to some other Intel folks and they're like, well, I can push to other non-OCP repos, right? Outside of Intel. So I'm like, oh, well, that means those repos maybe have something set differently than OCP. So yeah, let me know if it works. And if not,
Okay.
copy me and Kevin and I'll restart the discussion, because maybe there is a setting on the OCP side that still needs to be tweaked.
Okay. Because I know even Deb wanted to push something in, but she is not, I believe she's not tried yet. And it is the same larger repo. Okay, I'll try and let you know.
Yeah, it's the same. I'm sure she's gonna have the same issue as me and John.
Okay, I'll give it a try.
Okay, thank you. Cool. Anything else for today? No? Okay, well, cool. We'll look for that offline, Jeff, and otherwise we'll get back next week and kind of look at what we have all together.
All right, very good.
Cool. Cool. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Thanks, folks.
Have a good week. Bye.
You too. Bye.